Okay, I'll go ahead and get started with my introductions. I did mention that if you have any questions, if you could hold them to the end or put them in the chat feature, and Susan's going to help me monitor that. That was you, Susan, that said that, correct?
Yes, it was.
Okay, thank you.
I have to get over to my unmute.
Okay. My name is Joanne Luton. I am the Director of Records and Information Management for the university, the campuses, the system. I've been with the university about 3 years now. When I was hired to help get control of email. And that was a pretty big task. And so I've been working on that consistently for the past 3 years. The good news is we are making huge progress on getting a new electronic mail policy close to approved. The bad news is the reason that that is moving so well is because we've had some serious data breaches and problems that have resulted in a need for change. So again, if you have any questions, if you could save them to the end, we should have time for those. So some recent events that have happened with COVID-19, we have more employees working from home than ever before. That gives us, it's a huge change, but it spreads the data out because we're all working from different locations. We're not just working at the office. It changes security. I recently read an article that a really dedicated employee from another company lived pretty remotely in their state. And so they went to Walmart and worked in the parking lot on Walmart's public Wi-Fi. So, you know, there are some risks to working from home and working at all these random locations with family at home with us. So it's important to protect the university's information as we are working remotely. There's been an ongoing increase in phishing and spoofing scams, and I'm going to give you some data on that. We have new data privacy regulations. I literally learned about one of those this morning, and so I will share some information with that going forward. And then there's a daily increase in the volume of email receipts. I've got a lot of specific information that I think you'll appreciate knowing. And we're going to be preparing for a migration to Microsoft 365. And so we are currently on Outlook, and that is server-based. And so we have servers running all of our email at each of the campuses, and that is going to be moving to the cloud very soon. And we have a need to mitigate risk and reduce costs. This is not a good time to be spending university funds on data breaches when we need those funds to teach our students, to operate. And so we'll talk about some of the things that have happened in the past year or two that have resulted in some serious expenses. So some recent events and data. The university has a legal and regulatory responsibility for the security of the content in our email system. So we have to protect this information. Multiple university security incidents have happened due to phishing and spoofing, which are going to need some changes. We've had unauthorized access to our email system. And the really sad part about that is we've helped give access to hackers by giving out our user ID and passwords in phishing and spoofing scams. The average cost of a data breach in the United States is $8.19 million. Last year, that number was $7 million. So that just gives you a feel for the amount of money that can be spent on a data breach. Now, I wanted to say that I am part of an email policy team. So I've been working with legal, risk management, compliance, audit, and IT, and we've all been working together to try to create a new email policy to reduce risk and to make the whole email process better. So this is a brand new slide that I don't think very many of you have seen. The university has been conducting some email phishing testing. They started this in January of 2019, and you can see the data there. These tests were conducted at the email addresses that end in missouri.health.edu. So there were 12,000, between 12 and 13,000 emails sent in a email phishing test in January, May, August, October. You can see all the information there. And at times there were pretty big fail rates. The most recent test was in September of 2020, and 542 people gave out their user ID and passwords in that phishing test. What's really bad about that is everyone already had the new tagging on their email that said this was from an external vendor. So it's very important to pay attention to where your email is coming from and to determine if it is real or if it's a phishing or spoofing scam. And there were 33 repeat offenders between August and September. So I had somebody that called me in September and says, oh, I just responded to a phishing scam and it said, you've been busted, or whatever the email said. But, you know, it'd be very, very careful about giving your information out to individuals because, you know, somebody's not going to email you and ask you for your user ID and password. So you need to be very careful. Now, there are new data privacy regulations and old data privacy regulations that are out there. Since 1974, we've had FERPA, which protects student information. Many of you are very familiar with that. Since 1997, we've had HIPAA with the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. Everybody that works in the medical field is very familiar with that. And if you've ever been to a doctor since 1997, you should be aware of that because individuals do have to sign all kinds of statements saying, you know, I understand that you're protecting my information. And if I want my family to know about my health, I need to give specific approval for that. Since 1999, we've had the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, which protects financial information. A relatively new data privacy regulation went into place in 2018, and that was the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation. It is a European law that protects the information of Europeans. However, if they visit the United States, their data is protected still. And if we as Americans go to the European nations, our data is also protected under this law. Since May of 2018, since this was implemented, they've already issued $578 million in fines to 28 different countries. Some of the biggest hits were to Marriott International that had a big data breach and British Airways. They both lost general European citizens' information in those data breaches, and so they were heavily fined. We've all been impacted by this law since May of 2018, though, because every time you go online to a website and you have to click the little button that says, I accept the fact that you use cookies and you're following me around the website, that is all a result of the GDPR. And so in 2020, California Consumer Privacy Act was passed, and it mimics the GDPR. Now, the California Consumer Privacy Act does not really apply to us because we don't live in California. However, California is often one of the first states to pass legislation that starts a trend through other states. And so we need to be very aware of that Privacy Act and how it might impact us in the future. From what I understand, we've already had 3 different bills submitted in Missouri to pass Privacy Acts. So those haven't passed yet, but our day will come. In February of this year, there was the LGPD, which is Brazil's version of the GDPR, and perhaps a little bit more restrictive than even the General Data Protection Regulation. And literally this morning, I found out that California Privacy Rights Act passed. That was on Proposition 24 during the election this month, and it creates a board with funding and the ability to restrict more information and to enact the fines for the CCPA. So even as of this morning, things are still changing, more laws are being enacted. So I want to give you an example of some of the information that is protected under the data privacy regulations. So here is a list of some of the things that are protected. The ones that are in red are HIPAA related. But there are many that are covered under all of these, you know, FERPA, HIPAA, GDPR, the CCPA, the financial rules and regs. The one that really kind of makes me laugh a little bit is on the far right. You can see that in California, even your horoscope is protected. We also use, or I use my cell phone. I use facial recognition. So when you look down here at the biometric information, all of that information is protected. So when you use, you know, fingerprints to clock in, or your phone to open up data, your biometric information is protected, your driver's license, your web browser history, just about everything you can think of is protected. So I'd like to give you an example of how we as Americans perhaps are a little bit of hoarders. So I have a girlfriend who was applied to a university in Virginia back in 1990. She wanted to go to college there, so she applied and was approved or accepted, but she chose to go to another university that she had received an acceptance from. So last year, 29 years later, she received a letter that her information had been involved in a data breach. So this university had kept her information for 29 years after she applied to go to college there and did not even go there. So they kept her information that long. It was involved in a data breach, and look at all the people that they had to contact because they didn't get rid of information that they no longer needed. So it's very important that we keep information that we need to conduct our business, but we get rid of information that we do not need. Just think about the fact that on every corner of the United States, there's a new storage unit out there. We are great at hoarding data, hoarding stuff, but if we don't need it, we need to get rid of it to reduce risk. So here's some current system email volume. This does not include student information, but we have 50,000 active email accounts for staff. We are nearing about 300,000 student email accounts. Our average box size is 2.28 gigabytes per account. We have about 1 billion stored email messages on our servers. And we are growing by 46 gigabytes of data per day. Last year, that number was around 32 gigabytes. So imagine the increased volume that we are getting daily, and it has increased even since last year, since I gathered this data. Just so you can get a feel for how much 46 gigabytes of data is per day, that's equal to 46 semi-truckloads of paper. And that's how much our email volume is increasing daily. We have emails that are older than 20 years old. We have individuals who still are proud to say they have the first email they ever received from the university. And some of you need to let that go. So we have daily receipts nearing 1 million emails. 32% of those are filtered out by IT as possible threats, but that leaves 677,000 emails that we still need to manage daily. Huge volumes. So all of this is going to require, that amount of volume is going to require some work habit and cultural changes. So Outlook was meant to be a communication tool. It was not meant to be a file repository. It has worked really great for that in the past. So you get busy, you start to let your emails pile up, and before you know it, you have 10,000 emails. And you can go up into the search function, key in a word or two, and lo and behold, there's the email that you're looking for. Outlook is very functional, it works great, but we should be using it just to communicate back and forth with people and not to keep everything there forever. We don't do that with Excel, we don't do that with Word. You create a document in Excel, you save it to some other storage platform. We don't use Excel and store everything in Excel. So think about it as a communication tool. We are going to be taking a more corporate view of user email and other IT systems in the future. We are going to enforce the use of university systems for university business. We are going to ensure post-employment and postgraduate accounts are maintained with a better process. We currently have situations where individuals leave the university and they have lots of sensitive data there. They may go to another department that doesn't need sensitive data, and they're taking all that information with them. So we need to be better stewards of the information that's in our email accounts. And there's going to be a new personal responsibility for the information data we hold. You know, if we're told not to keep sensitive data in our email accounts and we let that pile up for 10 or 20 years, there's going to be some responsibility for doing that. I want to talk a little bit about a new approach that we're going to take to email management. We're going to be doing something similar to the federal government. They implemented a capstone approach to email in 2012. That was a act that was put in place by President Obama that said, you know, we are losing American history. We have all these presidents since the times of like even Ronald Reagan that have done communication by email now, and the government was behind and let some of those communications get lost. So in the past, you know, all the communication from the president was on beautiful letterhead with the White House at the top of it and the beautiful presidential signature. All of a sudden, things started happening by email, and people didn't manage that or keep it, and we've lost a lot of history since then. So in 2012, the National Archivist created a methodology to capture historical emails. So every email at the top of the leadership chain, so president, vice president, the heads of different cabinets, so their emails were all going to be kept forever. And then everyone below that line's email would go away after 7 years. So the government said, hey, if you have an email that needs to be kept longer than 7 years, you need to move it somewhere else. So individuals unfortunately started printing those emails that were over 7 years old and put those in file cabinets. So now new legislation has been passed that says the government can't do that, and you've got to manage your email electronically. So we are going to do a modified capstone approach, and I'll talk about some details on that in just a few moments. Several universities throughout the United States are also doing this approach, and we're going to keep email for a certain period of time and then do an automatic sweep and delete some emails in the future. So we are going to do this to maintain the history of our leaders. So we will have emails from President Choi, each of the chancellors, maybe the athletic director, high profile positions, our provosts. There'll be emails that we are going to keep forever, and everyone else, we are going to automatically sweep emails. So it's really important to delete the redundant, obsolete, and trivial emails to reduce risk. So that's what ROT stands for, and we'll talk about that some more too in just a moment. So current and future technology improvements. I'm taking a little bit of information from IT and sharing this with you. We have already implemented multi-factor authentication in front of several systems, MyHR, PeopleSoft, Outlook. We are already tagging external emails. So you see that little red blip at the top of the page. It says, ooh, be careful, this is coming from outside the university. So those are technology improvements that we've done to try to secure our information. We're also going to be migrating, as I said, from cloud, from server-based email to cloud-hosted email into Microsoft 365. We've got to migrate that billion emails later this year or early next year to the cloud. We are upgrading from A3 version of Microsoft license to A5. That is a huge improvement in security. There are many, many tools in Microsoft 365 A5 version that will better secure Teams, SharePoint Online, OneDrive. There are many better records management tools. So in the future, we may be able to take emails, right-click on them, and be able to tag them with a big bucket approach to records management. Say, I need to keep this for 1 year, or 3 years, or 5 years, or 10 years. So there are many things that we can do to improve the way we're currently managing our emails. And many of those will come through the version of A5 that we're purchasing. There's some really neat data loss prevention tools. So I did some testing with one of these tools. I was asked to send an email with 15 social security numbers in it to a personal email box of mine. And I used, of course, fake socials, and I sent them in that email, and a little bullet popped up that said, hey, are you sure you want to send this? This looks like you're sending sensitive data. And so I said yes, because I was testing, and the email went through. In theory, it was supposed to block my email if I sent more than 10 social security numbers in this test. So I called IT and I said, hey, I sent 15 social security numbers and this didn't stop the email from going through. And they said, that's because you only sent 8 unique social security numbers. You copied 7 of them to get to your 15. So it knew you only had 8 unique digits and not 15. So I thought that was pretty amazing that it was able to identify that. So we will be seeing lots of changes in the future, lots of ways to protect the university's information and to protect our customers and our data. So we also have some current storage locations that will be changing or going away in the future. Box will probably be going away. Departmental shared folders. I mean, we have all of our departmental information on shared drive. So that'll be a big change for us in our department to SharePoint on premises. All of these will be moving to things like Teams, SharePoint Online, and OneDrive. But for now, we just want to focus on getting rid of the garbage, keeping the important things, and then in the future, IT will give us more direction on where we're going to move that information for long-term storage. So I'm going to go over 2 slides that are going to talk about email policy goals and changes. So I need to state that this is all in draft form. This email policy has not been approved yet. It has not gone into place yet. So this is the way things currently stand. I will say that I've made multiple changes to this presentation in the last 24 hours. So things are changing, they're evolving. This is truly a courtesy heads up about what you might see in the near future, but this will give you an opportunity to work on cleanup before the policy goes into place. So our goal, though, is to reduce the overall number of accounts and quantity of data. So we've got people out there who have never deleted an email, and that is a problem. If you're going to store highly restricted data in your email accounts and you never get rid of it when you don't need it, that is a serious risk. Also, we have individuals or we have email accounts that haven't been used for long periods of time. If you haven't logged into your email account for a year, do you really need that? We also are we want to eliminate storing that highly restricted data in email accounts. So if you need to send an email with some information in it and you send it encrypted, that's great, but then you need to get that out of your email account after that is sent. We also want to prohibit the transmission of certain types of data except through encrypted means. Your IT security folks at each campus can tell you how to encrypt an email if you need to send certain types of data through email. So be sure and contact them if you need to do that. There will also be automatic sweeps of inboxes, sent items, and deleted items in the future. That's what I was talking about with the capstone approach. I'll give you some details on that in just a moment. But subfolders will not be swept. So if you drag and drop emails out of your inbox into a subfolder or a managed folder, those managed folders and subfolders will not be touched. So you will have a way to keep emails without them being swept. So do not forward your university email account to non-university accounts such as Google, Yahoo, Hotmail. If you auto forward all of your email to try to get around your email gigabyte restrictions, that will be prohibited. You cannot do that. So more email policy goals and changes. You never want to reuse a university password on non-university systems or accounts. So what I'm basically saying there is I don't want to use my university user ID and password at my joanneluton@aol.com account or my bank account or my Amazon Prime account or whatever the case might be. You do not ever want to reuse your university passwords on other systems. We are going to develop new processes to extend the use of email post-graduation and post-retirement. So there will be a process to make sure that we get post-retirement and post-graduation email accounts approved, and then that they will be reapproved perhaps after 3 years or something like that. That policy is still being defined and the procedures are still being defined, but there will be a process for approval so that we can continue to keep email past retirement, but it will be monitored so that we don't have email boxes sitting out there for years without someone logging in and checking their email. There will be a strict adherence to 15 gigabyte email box quotas per email address. So I, for example, have Joanne or lutonje@umsystem.edu is my email address. I also have records management at umsystem.edu. I also have records transmittal at umsystem.edu. I am the owner for those email boxes. And so each one of those will have a 15 gigabyte email quota, but each one of those will have their inbox, sent items, and deleted items swept automatically in the future. And there will be penalties for non-compliance. And that data I showed you at the beginning of the presentation where they did some phishing tests, you know, if you constantly fall for phishing scams in August and September and October, there will be penalties for giving out your user ID and password and giving others access to your university data. So it'll be important to protect the information that you're storing. Now, this is a bit of a visual of what I was talking about. So there, you can see here I have in the highlighted in yellow is my inbox, lutonje@umsystem.edu. You can see I have 36 emails in that box. I have my deleted items and sent items. As of today, the current proposal is that anything in my inbox would be swept after 3 years. Anything in my deleted items would be 30 days. Anything in my sent items would be 3 years. So in this inbox, I talked about the records management email box. It's a resource box that would be swept after 3 years. Same thing for records transmittal, same thing for Center U. But each one of these boxes would have a 15 gigabyte quota, the inboxes for those 4 accounts. But you can see below that here's my inbox for lutonje@umsystem.edu. I have subfolders for archives, ARMA, auditing, billing, budgeting, campus visits, destruction. All of those email boxes or those subfolders will not be swept. So you can take the information out of your inbox, move it to a subfolder, and it can be safely stored there for the future. So need to focus now on moving important emails to a subfolder, to a managed folder, to a system of record. So for example, if I was going to a training session at UMKC this week, and I had expenses for a car and overnight stay and meals, whatever the case might be, I would submit that information into PeopleSoft. So I would have my receipts, I would have my approval email, everything I have is electronic. My request to go there, all of this information is stored in PeopleSoft. So I don't need to have copies of that in my email account also. So there's an example where PeopleSoft is the system of record for that travel voucher. It might be Maxient, it might be ImageNow, it might be Surewell. Wherever the system of record is, you don't also need to keep that information in Outlook. So again, here's a summary of those automatic daily sweeps. Inbox and sent items will be 3 years, deleted items are 30 days. These amounts, these dates or years may change. It may be 3 years, it may be 4 years, it may be 5 years. But just know that it's time to get rid of the rot, the redundant, obsolete, and trivial information so that we reduce risk and that we also don't have to transfer that billion emails to Microsoft 365. Why transfer garbage? So this is a good time to clean out your email accounts of the work that, or not the work, but the non-records that are out there. And I'll give you some examples of what some of those non-records might be. So this is my one attempt at humor. So be prepared, start now. Clean up your email before the auto sweep begins. So we don't know exactly when that's going to start. Of course, the email policy has to be approved first. And then this Microsoft 365 has to be implemented and IT has to program it to do the automatic sweeps. But when that happens, let's say it's January the 1st of 2021 and the sweep starts, you want to get rid of all of your garbage before then, if at all possible. And you also want to move any records that are older than 3 years old into a subfolder so that you don't lose that information. It's also a good time, if you don't already have a personal email account, to create one for non-business email. We really should use the university email account as a business tool and not use that for personal emails. So I have my Joanne Luton at AOL.com that I use for my personal things. So, you know, if I sign up for Jimmy John's or Red Lobster coupons or whatever, I want to do that at my Joanne Luton at AOL.com and not my university system email address. So we want to delete rot, redundant, obsolete, and trivial data. If you haven't opened it in 6 months, so this is for the people who hoard their emails. This is specific to you. If you are not able to manage your emails and you've got 10,000 emails in your account and you've got emails that have not been opened in more than 6 months, you need to let those emails that are older than 6 months go, because if you haven't replied in 6 months, you're not going to go back and open those and respond to those emails. For one thing, your coworkers probably emailed you again and said, hey, I need this right now, and you didn't answer, you didn't respond to my last email. Or they'll say, they walked down the hall and said, hey, I need this. Or they called you and said, hey, I sent you an email and I need this information. So if you haven't opened it in more than 6 months, get rid of those emails. Sort them by unopened, by name, by subject, to delete non-records and personal stuff. So, you know, sort it by your friend's name, or, you know, sort everything, look at the person who sent it, and you'll know whether those records are business records or not, and you can delete the garbage. Delete outdated meeting notices. Just like Susan sent us all invitations to come to this meeting, she probably received, you know, 300 little messages that said, sure, I'm coming. She doesn't need to keep those 300 messages. All that information is in Outlook, it's in the meeting notice. It says, you know, scheduling assistant, who's in the meeting, who accepted, who declined. All that information is in Outlook. You don't also need to keep those meeting notices that you received by email. You want to move important emails to subfolders or the system of record. We talked about that just a few seconds ago. Do not delete any items that are on legal hold. You want to make sure that you retain those, and you want to follow university retention authorization. So if there's something in your email account that you need to keep longer than 3 years, you need to make sure that you move that to a subfolder. Also, you know, the cold hard truth is, if you don't do that at the point that we start the automatic sweeps, we will do that. We will sweep your email for you if you haven't had time to clean it out before then. Also, you want to avoid converting emails to PSTs or personal email storage. Some of you have done that because your email accounts are very large. IT's helped you with that. But you need to know that by moving your PSTs out of Outlook, that sometimes they get corrupted after 4 or 5 years. And also it's harder to search items if they're not in Outlook. So if you're moving your emails to PSTs to try to save storage space, just be aware that that could be a problem for you in the future. And again, right now, I just need for everyone to focus on cleaning out the garbage, getting rid of the rot, and moving those long-term items that you need to keep to a subfolder. So this is going to be the best tool I'm going to give you today. This will help you clean up your email boxes. So the first thing I need to say, though, and apologize for, is that this does not work on Macs. So on this particular slide, if you have a Mac, you can ignore what I'm saying. So there is a cleanup folder tool in Outlook. If you right-click on your inbox or any subfolder and click on Cleanup Folder, and it will eliminate all duplicate emails in that folder. So, you know, I may be in the loop of a business email and I think that we're done talking, and so I move that email into a subfolder, and then somebody starts the conversation again, and so I get another email in that chain, and then I move it to the subfolder. And this keeps on happening, and I end up with 10 copies basically of the same email in my subfolder. If you do the right-click cleanup folder, it will delete all of those duplicates, keep the most recent email of that chain, and it will also keep the attachments or anything different that anybody did in that chain. So this is a great tool. I've had people that have used this, and it automatically deleted multiple thousands of emails out of their inbox or subfolders that were duplicates. So I highly recommend you try this. If you're a little nervous about doing it on your inbox first, use it on a smaller subfolder. If you don't have any cleanup in there, it will tell you no emails were cleaned up. So this literally is cleaning out the garbage in your boxes because they are all duplicates. So the final email will still be there. You can still find it when you search, but it will help you get rid of lots of unnecessary emails. Now, the tentative timeline for all of this is that the policy and procedures will be going to general officers and senior leaders this month and next. Hopefully it'll be finalized before the end of December, and then we'll have implementation early next year. It will take a long time for technical and policy enforcement to go in place. It will take time to implement all of this, to program it. So you won't see final implementation for several months. I can't promise you that the automatic sweep will happen January the 1st or February the 1st or March the 1st. What's important to remember is that the final email policy, when that happens, it will be shared with everyone, and it'll be very important to read that final policy because a lot of this information could change. So don't use this presentation as the final version of what is going to happen because things can and do change often. So remember that people can't steal what isn't there. So the hackers, they've been working from home since before COVID-19. They're great at stealing data, and they have not slowed down since we've been working remotely. And if we don't get rid of the garbage and we give out that user ID and password, they will take it. So they can't steal what isn't there. This policy is still in development, and make sure you read the final version carefully. So let me look at some of the chat questions here. I think we've got a lot of questions. Can we get a copy of the PowerPoint? Yes. Susan, how do I share that with everyone?
You can, actually, if you want to send it to me, then I can send it out to everyone.
Okay, that sounds great. I will share the presentation with you. Just do remember that as you're passing this around, this is not the final version of the policy. As I said earlier, I've already changed the slide multiple times last night and today because things change frequently because it's still being created. And I will share those. Is the work address protected? Can somebody help me out with what that means?
On the protected information, like HIPAA information, she's asking about, is their work address protected?
Internally, I believe that it is, but I can't swear to that. Definitely, if you send anything externally, it has to be encrypted. But we really, the big problems that we've had so far are the fact that we've had multiple university data breaches because of the phishing and spoofing scams. Just in the last month or two, we had a situation where there was a data breach and 189,000 individuals had their personal health information potentially accessed. That was the most recent one. We were #1 on the HIPAA news for our data breach that month. That's a problem. We also had data breaches on Blackbaud, which was our donor information recently. That also was in response to a phishing scam. That was a third-party vendor's data breach, but that's how that happened. We've had phishing scams that were responded to last year that we lost potentially Social Security information, more personal health information. We've had a student data breach where we lost tons of sensitive data because that student was working on some important projects and gave out their user ID and password. You know, it's great to have all of these things in place to protect all this information. But if you give out your user ID and password, you've just given the keys to the kingdom to whoever asked for it. Birth dates. Yes, birth dates were covered underneath many, let me go back to this slide. Medical information and dates. I think birth dates was on here. Hang on, let me find that. physical characteristics, driver's license information, birth dates are on that. So I would say that probably is something that we need to be careful about. Now, sometimes we have to send emails to individuals. Somebody gave me a great example a few weeks ago where because of COVID, because everybody's working remotely, they have to receive W-9s electronically. Well, you know, that information is in an email. We take it out of the email, we process it in PeopleSoft or whatever system we need, and then you need to get rid of that out of the email account. So I understand that you do have to send information electronically sometimes, but don't store it there when you've got sensitive data attached to your emails. Will there be a recording of the session available? Likely next week on the hrsmissouri.edu webpage. Oh, I'm sorry, Susan put that out there. Someone apologized for being a hoarder and they're going to clean out their email account on Black Friday. So God bless you, thank you. PowerPoint slides. Can we get those emails back if we need them? Great question. So let's say that we do a sweep at 3 years out of your inbox. Those emails are going to go to your deleted folder for 30 days, okay? And at the end of those 30 days, then your deleted folder is going to be swept, and then it's going to be gone forever and ever. And so that's why it's so important to make sure that you move important emails that you do need into a subfolder so that they can be kept until their retention is expired.
Joanne, while we're on this slide, there's a last question that got asked is, what does the red highlighted words in red mean again?
Those were the ones that are specific to HIPAA, but also to other items. So fax numbers, for example, are covered under the CCPA, web browser history, but those are also things that are specific to HIPAA. So it just shows the importance of protecting all of this information. Yes, Box is leaving. Oh, this says Box is leaving us by August. I understood that it is leaving in the near future, and I don't know the specifics, but it's good to know that August is a potential timeline. The issue with all of that is we have to know where to put these things that are stored securely. So they have to get Microsoft 365 implemented first and tell us exactly where to put those things so that they're secure, HIPAA protected, all of that. Examples of DCL4 data. There's a whole policy out there that talks about that, but credit card information is DCL4 data. Social security numbers are DCL4 data. Any patient information, PHI is highly restrictive DCL4 data. Will calendars be swept also? No, not at this time. The only thing that we're sweeping is the inbox, sent items, and deleted folder. So emails will no longer automatically be secure to share HIPAA information for those currently covered under this. If you're sending DCL4 level data outside of the university, you need to make sure that information is encrypted. If you've got questions about whether you can send that information internally in the university and whether it needs to be encrypted or not, I would talk to your security officer at your campus. How do we tell the size gigabytes of our email? I would Google that. I think that you can just, I think it'll tell you, but I don't know exactly where that information is. Oh, I'm sorry, I did not tell you what our size limit is right now. Our current size limit is 15 gigabytes, and it will be staying at that. So in the past, though, there have been some exceptions that were made, and those will be going away. So 15 gigabytes is the maximum size of your email. The 15 gigabytes does include all of the subfolders. So that 15 gigabyte size quota is for everything in your email box. Another question, so even if it's a subfolder in the inbox itself, the subfolders will not be swept. That is correct. Just general unsorted email in the inbox will be swept. Emails in your sent items will be swept and the deleted folders. What happens if a system like PeopleSoft crashes? That's a problem for accounting, but that system is backed up over and over and over again. It is the system of record, and IT does and accounting does what they need to do to protect that information. You know, that is the system of record, so that if they don't have any of that data, that's a serious problem, because those are vital records that we have to have to operate at the university. So there are methodologies in place to protect that information. So you don't need to keep copies of everything in Outlook. The managed folders we already have are a safe place to store information. Yes, and those are not currently being swept. So if you see the little managed folders underneath your subfolders, you can put information there. Those will not be swept. What's the difference between managed folders and subfolders? Managed folders were created about 10 years ago, and they were supposed to be in the future automatically swept. I think there was a 1-year box, a 5-year box, 10-year box, 20-year box. And then supposedly if you drug items in there, then at the end of that period, they would go away. But with some changes that Microsoft had, that didn't really happen. And so you can store things there so that it helps you remember when you need to delete them. Or you can store them in a subfolder by subject. Either way, anything in those subfolders or managed folders will not be swept. Are we okay to have emails from a personal account to forward into Outlook so they are in one place? Honestly, that would not be a great way to manage your email. You just need to check your personal account. You need to check your work account, because we want to keep, I mean, this is our business account. So we need to be doing business work on our university email address and not storing, you know, thousands of personal email messages and taking up server space, using IT's time and resources to manage personal information. Is there a way to sort by meeting notices and invites to quickly delete those? Yes. If you go into your email account and you sort by attachments and then scroll down to the bottom of your email, you'll see all those little blips down there for meeting notices, and you can delete all of that. Where can we find the university retention authorization information? It is on the records management website under umsystem.edu. And you can go to records management there. I will tell you that we currently have about 950 retention authorizations. It's massive, and it's very hard to administer. I am working on a big bucket approach to email management that will hopefully take those 900 different retention authorizations and put them in 10, 15 categories. So you'll be seeing changes on that in the near future too. They'll make it much more user friendly, but that link is out there for the retention auths. And if you have any questions about how long to keep something, you can always email me at recordsmanagement@umsystem.edu or Joanne Luton at lutonje@umsystem.edu. And I think I've gone past my time too. I apologize. The subfolders will be moved to Microsoft 365. Where are the attachments saved for the cleanup folder trick? If you do that, they automatically go to deleted. Any of the duplicate emails go to the deleted items. If they are not a duplicate, they will stay in the box that you currently ran that cleanup folder trick on. It won't go away if it's a record or an original. Will this apply to resource accounts? Yes. This presentation is not redundant, obsolete, or trivial. Thank you. What are the chances of Zoom? What are the chances of you doing an updated Zoom if the switch in a few months? There will be so many. I will be doing additional presentations on this when it's finalized. I'm literally working with communication staff and IT and MyLearn HR folks to get a new presentation of the final version of this ready to go whenever we get this done. There will be additional presentations. Faxes through fax to email. the fax is in your email account, so it's basically now considered an email. So you need to look at the contents of that fax. Is it a record? Isn't it? And just handle it just like any other email. Adobe DC lets you password protect a document. Is that sufficient protection to send in an email? I don't know the answer to that question. That's an IT question. Here's a great answer. How to find out how much space you're using. Click on File, then View Cleanup Tools. Oh, I think that's what I was talking about earlier. Click Size, right-click Folder, and click Properties, and it'll tell you what the size of your account is. Resource account folders. Every resource account or every individual account has its own 15 gigabyte size. Sent emails will be swept. I have not heard of any bad experiences using the cleanup folder tool. I've tested it multiple times. IT's tested it. It looks like it's real and a great tool. Resource accounts will be 15. Oh, somebody cleaned out 2,000 emails using the resource tool while we were doing the presentation. Okay, well, I am out of time. I apologize. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, please email me at recordsmanagement@umsystem.edu. Thank you and have a great day.
Thanks, Joanne.
Thank you so much, Joanne. We really appreciate you taking the time.
No problem. Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.